believe we have been called by God and we've been chosen for this hour. We are no better than anyone else. We're no better than any other denomination, except we have been called by His name.
So how many of you, before you came to a formal prophecy Bible study, you tried to read the book of Revelation or Daniel? Oh, yeah. Either one. And how many of you came away with the opinion they were smoking something heavier than what's legal in California? Or I should say Washington State. So Colorado, yeah. So it can be very intimidating. So tonight we're going to dive off into some of that and hopefully take some of the scariness out. I remember as a small child, people preaching on the beast of Revelation or the beast of Daniel. And that word itself just makes you have great anxiety when you're a small child, lay awake at night. And so hopefully we're going to try to take some of the anxiety out of it. And more importantly, kind of this is a unique Bible study because it shows us kind of where we are as America and as Christians in America, kind of where we are in our place in prophetic history in these last days. If these are the last days, we would expect us to be mentioned somewhere in there. And tonight we're going to get to that. Somebody say yay. Yay. So last week we talked about the vision of the woman clothed with the sun. We talked about that John saw the 12th chapter of Revelation. And if you're reading the book of Revelation, John wrote the visions down as they were portrayed. Basically, God used the sky above the sea as a huge screen, and basically God showed the visions of things like almost like a 3D film experience, and I'm sure it was quite terrifying. John did not understand everything that he was seeing. He just wrote it down as he saw, and of course it was up to the people who would be in that time to understand when they see it come fulfilled. Everybody say yay? Amen. So if you're reading Revelation chapter 12, when you get to the end of Revelation chapter 12, remember the chapters are there to help us find things. It segues into another vision, and that we talked about in 12th chapter, there was the dragon, which represented the devil. And then this same dragon stays on the screen, as it were, in the 13th chapter. And it stands on the sand of the seashore where John was. And then another vision begins to unfold with this great conglomeration of a beast rising out of the sea to stand beside the dragon, okay, and to stand with the dragon. And so that's where we're heading. We're heading to the first 10 verses of Revelation chapter 13, where it has that beast. It has all these different body parts stuck to it. It looks like a Franken monster, okay, if you read in Revelation 13. If you're just reading Revelation, you're like, whoa, this is crazy, okay? It's like something I whipped up in my basement from various animal body parts. Not that there are various animal body parts in my basement, but just, that kind of thing. But if my parents' dog had peed in my garage one more time, there would have been body parts laid around my garage because I was about tired of going in there peeing on my exercise mat. So anyway, we've gotten this Bible study off to a great start, haven't we? So the key to understanding one vision, if there's a vision, we've talked about this, and you're kind of starting to see a pattern and perhaps maybe even some method to the madness. And that is, the key is, if one area of the Bible there's a vision, a prophecy we do not understand, or it has symbols or imagery that we do not understand, then if we can find another prophecy, another vision, another prophet, another place in the Bible that uses the same images, very often, I would almost say almost always, there is additional information which will help us grasp that, okay? So to understand Revelation 13, you've got to go back to Daniel chapter 7, okay? So we're in Daniel chapter 7, verse 1 through 2, and Sister Zoe, I think, wants to read tonight. So Daniel 7, 1 through 2, take it away, ma'am.
In the first year of Belshazzar.
Yeah, right in the middle. They have to put a word like that, right? Belshazzar.
That's good. King of Babylon, Daniel saw a dream of visions and his mind as he lay on his bed. Then he wrote his dream down and related the following summary of it. To Daniel said, I was looking in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up stirring up the Red Sea.
All right, very good. All right. So let's talk a little bit about that. The similarities between Daniel and John are pretty remarkable. If you've never thought about that, you need to realize that the book that has the greatest amount of end-time prophecy or prophetic content that's yet to be fulfilled in the Old Testament is the book of Daniel. And the book in the New Testament that has the greatest bulk of end-time prophecy yet to be fulfilled is John writing in the book of Revelation, okay? And there's a great parallel between Daniel and John. They are the only two men in the Bible whom God says, they calls them beloved, which means especially loved, okay? So that's kind of interesting, and that kind of gives you kind of a insight into how God works in giving insight into His plan. He shares, you have plans to do something. Brother Manfred's planning to get his hair cut, going to get a reverse mohawk or something. He wants to. He doesn't just go do it and show up. He wants to tell his plans with his friends. And if you have a truly true friend, you want to tell them kind of what you have going on in your life. And God is the same way. People that are especially close to Him, God wants to reveal what He's about to do because He's a friend. Somebody say amen? Okay? So there's this parallel. Both of them wrote their books. They were in exile. John had been exiled to an island in the middle of the Mediterranean, an island called Patmos. And Daniel was in exile. He had been taken from his homeland, and he was in a foreign land called Babylon. Y'all with me here? Okay. Both saw visions that foretold the future as scenes played out rising from the sea. Okay. If you think about great seamanship, as far as like when I don't mean like the Sea of Galilee, which is really a freshwater lake. Okay. But I'm talking about like saltwater. The Jews do not have a lot of sailors that go off. In fact, in Solomon's day, he hired sailors to go with him. The Israelites were landlubbers and freshwater lovers. Okay, they were not salty sea sailors on the sea, and so the sea represented the unknown. Okay, and so God used imagery that they both would grasp in their culture to represent the mysterious and the unknown, and so He used the sea as this backdrop. Plus, it provided a big screen. It was the wide panorama for God to show them all kind of cool stuff. Somebody say yay. Yay. Sometimes people say, well, why do you have a projector in your church with software and words and all that? It's like, well, God was using a projector a long time ago. It's kind of a show and lights, okay? So both Daniel and John were faithful to God despite negative situations in their life. Somebody say yay. Yay. And so both of them wrote down very faithfully what God told them to do, even though they didn't understand. So there's this great parallel, and I could keep going, but I'm not. But I want you to realize that there are some similarities, that John is the Daniel of the New Testament and Daniel is the John of the Old Testament, and there's some great similarities to this. In fact, if it hadn't have been absolutely provable that John wrote the book of Revelation, people would have cast it out of the Bible a long time ago, because they all thought he was smoking stuff that hadn't been invented yet. Okay? But the fact was, they knew absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, that John, the last of the 12, had written it, and they couldn't deny that. And so they didn't understand it, and they thought he was crazy, but they had to admit it in the Bible because it was John's writing, and he said it was from the Lord. So you can see God working it through that. Somebody say amen. Amen. So they see all of these things. Now, the point I'm trying to make is they wrote on opposite sides of Jesus Christ's first coming. Okay? So if what I want you to grasp is, today we're going to see that in Revelation 13, John saw visions of some of the same animals and some of the same imagery that Daniel saw in Daniel chapter 7. Well, Daniel's before Calvary, and John's writing in 110 AD, a full 70 to 80 years after Calvary. Okay? So what you have to understand is, obviously, these whatever these beasts represent, or whatever they're trying to tell us, they represent stuff that was pertinent before Christ's first coming. But the fact that John uses the same imagery 70, 80 years after the time of Christ tells us that they're also pertinent to Christ's second coming. Okay? And so we're going to get into the double fulfillment of prophecy. Okay? That often prophecy, pretty much always, prophecy has two fulfillments: how it relates before Christ's first coming and how it relates before Christ's second coming. And we've already covered that in our first lesson. And if you keep that in mind, you will not get turned around. Are y'all with me here? Okay. So let's dive in. And what we're going to do first is we're going to continue in Daniel chapter 7, but we're going to talk about the immediate fulfillment. Okay. Now this is boring as watching paint dry. Okay, because it's history. Okay. And some people are not into history. I'm into history. I like history. but some people are not into history, and that just means you had a horrible history teacher, okay? Because history is very interesting if you have a great history teacher. So that's my opinion on that. My wife hated history because she had boring history teachers. She said, if you'd been my history teacher, I would have been interested. I said, if I had been my history teacher, that would have been weird for me to marry you. So, especially since she's older than I am, by what, a month, 6 weeks, something like that. So, yes. So Daniel 7 and 3. We're going to talk about, I'm going to go quick, okay? We're going to talk about the immediate fulfillment. And by the immediate fulfillment, what I mean is, what do these beasts represent in Daniel's time, before Christ's first coming? Y'all with me? And that's important to set up, because then we're going to go back through them, and we're going to talk about what they mean before Christ's second coming, which is what's pertinent to us. And that's when the Bible study gets cool. Y'all trust me? Yep. Okay. So, Sister Josie, kick us off. You get a short one tonight. Daniel 7 and 3, ma'am, right there.
And 4 great beasts were coming up from the sea, different from one another.
Okay, let's talk about that word beast. That comes from the King James, and that seems a little bit more ominous than it should be, okay? The term in the Hebrew simply means a wild, dangerous animal, okay? The opposite of beast is like a domesticated pet, okay? So these are animals that you would not keep as a pet. These are animals that are not, this is not Fluffy, in the garage that I mentioned that my parents' dog, never mind. So, this is not an animal that man tames or easily tamed, okay? So, God is using this imagery to let him know that humans will not be able to control this, that you will not be able to stop this. These things are going to come, in other words, we're going to get into this at the end. I'm not telling you this stuff so you try to stop it. I'm trying to tell you this stuff so you're forewarned that these things are inevitable. These are some wild creatures. Somebody say yay? Yay. And let's take them one by one. Daniel 7 and 4. Yep, she does have 2 eyes. Go ahead. Pass. Okay. Go ahead, Abby.
The first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until its wings were plucked, and it was lifted up from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind was also given to it.
Okay, so the first is a lion. Everybody say lion. Obviously, this is mythological, or these are emblem or symbols, okay, because there has never been a lion that had eagle's wings, right? Okay. And then, as they watched, the wings were plucked from it, and it was lifted from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and then a human mind or human understanding was given to it, okay? So that's very interesting. Then the second one is Daniel 7 and 5. We got to kick up somewhere. Let's kick up to Brother Mafro, since we already talked about his hair that I'm jealous of. Go ahead.
And behold, another beast, a second one resembling a bear. And it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs from its mouth between its teeth. And thus they said to it, Arise, devour vegetables.
Okay, so the second's a vicious bear with 3 rib bones. He just came from Tony Roma's on Monday and has the 3 ribs. That's kind of weak laughter. Okay. Then the third one, let's keep going. Go ahead, Sister Mary. We'll let you
After
go.
this I kept looking, and behold, another one like a leopard which had on his back 4 wings of a bird, and the beast also had 4 heads, and the dominion was given to.
Okay, so did I skip one? No, we didn't. Yeah. Right? We had the lion and the bear, right? Okay, so now we have the leopard, and it's a weird leopard. It's a 4-headed leopard, right? You've seen those in the zoo, right, with wings? Not. Okay, I'm going to tell you, if I'm in the zoo and there's a leopard with wings, and they can fly over anywhere, I'm gone. Okay. So obviously these are not real animals, right? They have to represent something. Y'all with me here?
Yes.
Who gets the long one? Sister Jean. Okay, so we're on top of page 2. Daniel 7 and 7. Go ahead.
After this I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrifying and extremely strong. And it had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. While I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them. And 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth uttering great boasts.
Okay, so the 4th animal is extremely different from the 3. Okay, now I found this picture on Google. Okay, And this is Daniel right here having a bad night's sleep. Okay, this is and he had too much pizza the night before. But you can see the lion, the leopard, or whatever. But then when you get to the fourth beast, they have like a rhinoceros with a bad hair day and bad breath. But it's a weird. Obviously, we don't know if this is officially what it looked like. These are actual pictures of what Daniel saw. I'm just kidding. This is somebody's rendition of it, okay? But it's obviously a weird thing, a dreadful, terrifying. Everybody say extremely strong. Okay? Strong. And the fact that he can say that this one looks like a bear, this one looks like a leopard, this one looks like a lion, and then he gets to this fourth one, he's just like, this is a big ugly and yikes. Okay? Means it was not an animal that has a representative on earth, okay? It was a kind of a weird, extremely strong one, okay? It had 10 horns. And then that little horn began to grow. It knocks 3 horns off, and the little horn grows until it becomes like a man, has a mouth uttering great boasts. Now, throughout the Bible, horns are representative of strength, might, authority, leadership, kingship. And so it's pretty obvious that the horns represent leaders who are men, okay? Let us keep going, and then we're going to come back and to have a little fun with it. Daniel 7 and 9, who gets it?
I kept looking until thrones were set up, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His vesture was like white snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne was ablaze with flames. Its wheels were burning with fire. A river of fire was flowing and coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands were attending him, and a myriad upon myriads were standing before him. The court sat, and the books were opened.
Okay, so eventually thrones were set up, and which kind of took over and bumped these animals out of the picture, right? Okay. And the Ancient of Days took his seat, okay? That means the King of Glory sat down on his throne, and no longer were these beasts in control. He's in control. He's the King of all. Y'all with me here? If you go over to Revelation chapter 1, verse 13 to 16, this is in your footnotes, you'll find that when John first encounters Jesus in the book of Revelation, that he describes Jesus by pretty much the same description that Daniel has of the Ancient of Days here, okay? He talks about his vesture being like white snow. He talks about the hair of his head like pure white wool, okay? And the Bible says we're going to be like him. So there's a chance I will have Brother Mafro's hairdo one day in heaven. The Bible says I will be like he is. I see some of y'all are, this is not a big enough theological concept to some of y'all. We will have hair, man. We will have a fro for the tip. So anyway, moving right along. A little bit of awkwardness in the deal here. But this is obviously, the Ancient of Days can only refer to Jesus Christ. Everybody say yay? Yay. So what I want you to grasp is, whatever is represented by these 4 beasts are on the earth immediately before Jesus Christ brings judgment. I want you to grasp that, okay? Because after these 4 beasts, then the Ancient of Days comes, or Jesus Christ comes. Does that make sense? So the key concept right here, without getting bogged down on it, we'll go back to some of the descriptions of Jesus eventually. We get to Revelation 19. But without getting bogged down on that right now, the key concept to realize is that, of course, Jesus Christ came first, okay? So if we know history, we should be able to find something that these animals represent that were on earth, that came on earth before Jesus' first coming. Y'all with me? And luckily, we do not have to guess what the animals represent, because Daniel was given some clues, okay? I like it when Daniel goes and asks people, because that's exactly what I would do. If I'm getting all these visions, okay, I would not be writing them down and going, oh yeah, sure, God, whatever you say. I'll be like, God, you got some explaining to do. If I'm ever going to preach this, I need some backup, okay? And that's what Daniel did. Daniel 7:16.
I approached one of those who were standing by and began asking him the exact meaning of all of this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. These great beasts, which are 4 in number, are 4 kings who will arise from the earth. But the saints of the highest one will receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, for all ages to come. Okay, so these 4 beasts represent kings or their kingdoms, because kings mean there's a kingdom, right? Okay. In modern terms, we can say that these beasts represent nations or kingdoms or some sort of country or some sort of governmental body that's in power. Y'all with me? That would arise from the earth. Somebody say from the earth. Right before Jesus Christ came. And then the angel goes on to give more detail about the 4th kingdom. But before we get that, let's go back to those prophecies and let's talk about the immediate fulfillment, okay? I know this is boring because it's history. Stay with me just for a second. We're heading somewhere worth going. Y'all with me? Okay? If you look at before Jesus Christ came, he was born around 4 BC. He died around 30 AD. Okay?
And that's his time frame as far as way. You realize he didn't celebrate his birthday by saying 4 BC, right? You realize that's how we keep time, right? Okay, I just like totally mess somebody's mind up right now. Okay, like you realize people born in 600 BC didn't know they were living in 600 BC, right? Right. Okay, I'll let you figure it out. This is how we keep time, okay? But in our time frame or our timeline, that's where he came to be, okay? And right before Christ came the first time, okay, there were 4 separate world powers, okay, that were in existence, okay? Now, there was a world power before these, and that was Egypt, okay? You say, why were they mentioned? Well, because Daniel was after Egypt. So Egypt was already gone, and Egypt's dominance was already gone. Y'all with me? Yes. So from the time Daniel sees the vision until Christ's first coming, there were 4 major world powers. And when I'm saying world powers, it's kind of hard for us to fathom. I mean, they took over and controlled the civilized world. They pretty much everybody except the crazy barbarians running around with bones in their nose in various places, they were in control of, and their armies and their political power and their might, it was a one world system. It's kind of hard for us to grasp this, but it really happened, okay? And so the first one was a lion with eagle's wings, right? The first beast. This represented the kingdom of Babylon, of course, whom Daniel was an exile in when he received these visions. He was a exile or a prisoner to the king of Babylon and the kingdom of Babylon. Okay, and throughout the Bible, Babylon is described throughout the prophets as a lion. For example, see Jeremiah 4:7, Isaiah 5:29. There are others, but that'll get the point across. The prophets would describe them as a lion. Okay. And the king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, was also alluded to in the Bible as an eagle. Jeremiah 48:40, Ezekiel 17:3, Ezekiel 17:7. There are others as well. The lion is the king of the beast. You've heard that because it's the most regal and noble of all the creatures. And the eagle is the king of the birds. And so, in the like manner, Babylon was the grandest kingdom of all. Nebuchadnezzar, okay, was typified by the eagle's wings being plucked out from the lion and given the mind of a man. Because after he had conquered the world, and this is found, I think, in the 4th chapter of Daniel, after he had conquered the world, Nebuchadnezzar became prideful and began to talk about what he had done. And God, the God of Israel, humbled him greatly and made him lose his mind. He literally went crazy. Y'all with me here? For 7 years, he went so insane that he lived like a beast out in the field, like eating grass and all kind of crazy stuff. And the Bible says in Daniel 4:33 that his hair grew as eagle's feathers or eagle's wings. Okay, he would grow and he looked wild and crazy. God literally caused this great king to go insane for 7 years. You can read this in your own reading, Daniel chapter 4. After God gave him his mind back, then he professed that the true God is the God of Israel. And in his own way, Nebuchadnezzar became a believer in the God of Israel, largely because of Daniel and his impact in his life. Y'all with me here? Okay, so what did God do? Okay, he was great, lifted up. He thought he was the eagle, he was the man. But then what happened is God humbled him and gave him a heart or a mind of the man. He realized that I am just a man. I'm not, okay? And to do so, he had to take him from the lion for a time in order to humble him. Do you grasp the imagery here, okay? So even before all of this, you know, before we get into there was an immediate, before we get to the final, before Jesus Christ's second coming, there was an immediate fulfillment of all the stuff that would have been applicable in Daniel's day, okay? The second, Babylon ruled from about 605 BC to 539 BC, and then they were taken over, and the takeover is detailed in the 5th chapter of Daniel. Okay, Daniel was actually a prisoner while this happened. They were taken over by a much crueler, a much meaner group. It was a coalition of the Medes and the Persians. Okay, and typically we call it Persia, but it was actually the Medes and the Persians. I think if I remember right, the Medes were the controlling family who were using Persia. We'll get off that another time, okay? But the Medes and the Persians took over because Nebuchadnezzar's son, Belshazzar, ticked God off by being irreverent to the holy things. And so they had the whole thing with the handwriting on the wall. How many know what I'm talking about? Yes. Okay, I'm kind of going through a lot of history, okay? And this kingdom took over Babylon under the guidance of great King Cyrus. And the Medes and the Persians were known for their cruelty. Nebuchadnezzar was known for his benevolence to his prisoners and for his regalness and for his grandeur, okay, like a lion. But the Medes and Persians were meaner than a hornet, okay? So the bear, the symbolism of a vicious bear. The 3 ribs are an allusion. The 3 chief conquests of the area of the empire. They took over Babylon, they took over Lydia, and they took over Egypt. Okay, you can read all about that in Daniel chapter 5. So we can see this was happening. Then came, okay, and by the way, the Old Testament ends with, when you get to Malachi, the world is under Persian rule. Okay, so the Old Testament ends. Between your Old Testament and your New Testament, there are 400 years. Okay, so between the end of Malachi, right here, okay, and the start of Matthew chapter 1, there is 400 years of human history. Okay, they're called the scholars call them the silent years, because in that 400 years there was no visions, there was no prophets, there were no miraculous works. Therefore, it was like God went silent. But really, what God was doing was God was behind the scenes fulfilling these prophecies as He had shown Daniel to set everything up for Christ's first coming. Y'all with me here? Okay. But in history, it didn't look like a whole lot was going on. Okay, as far as God, but actually, of course, we know the Bible says, as I'm not over here.
All right.
Okay, the Bible says that God sets up kings. In fact, the book of Daniel tells us that God sets up kings and God tears down kings. That God knows what He's doing, working behind the scenes. Can I get a witness? Okay. So when you leave the Old Testament, you get into that 400 years. Stay with me for a minute. I know it's history. Okay, but I'll do tricks or whatever to keep you awake, okay, because we're going to get to good stuff in a minute. Can we do the sprinkler? Okay, so there came a third world power, and that was the Grecians, the Greeks, okay, and the Greeks came under and took over Alexander the Great. How many ever heard of Alexander the Great? Yes. 334 BC. The leopard and the wings are, why are we laughing? Are you laughing at my Roman Empire? Yes. I had to find something that worked, okay, so I went with the T-Rex. I'm sorry about that. It probably wasn't a T-Rex.
It's like a raptor.
But, or a raptor or whatever, you know. Anyway, you know. Coming back to Alexander the Great. As y'all are making fun of my Raptor Rex.
At least you didn't draw it.
At least I didn't draw it. You're right. Okay. So in 334 BC, Alexander the Great set out to conquer the world. How many of you have ever heard this at least somewhere before? Yes. The leopard and the wings represent the swiftness. What's the leopard known for? He's known for running like the wind. The wings, just it gives that. And Alexander the Great conquered the world. When he died in 323 BC, he divided his kingdom among his 4 generals, and that's where the 4 heads of the leopards come from. Okay, the 4 heads are the name. 4 generals were Ptolemy, Lysimachus, Cassander, Seleucus, and the analogy of the leopard is very fitting because Alexander the Great was one who majored in cultural diversity, okay? That whenever he went to an area, he didn't try to kill the culture, he tried to assimilate the culture into the Greek culture and combine it. So the spots represent that, okay? In fact, you may have heard of the Septuagint, okay, which is a Greek translation of the Old Testament, okay, which was basically the Bible of Jesus and the apostles, okay? It was there when they quoted, we know from reading what their quotes in the New Testament, they're quoting the Septuagint translation of the Old Testament. Y'all with me here?
Yep.
Okay, because they follow its rendering, okay? And that Septuagint means the 70, and basically Alexander the Great commissioned 70 Jewish leaders to translate the Old Testament into Greek so that the whole world could have it. He didn't believe that Jehovah God was the only God, but he was trying to assimilate all culture, including Judaism. He was a great friend of Jews, and there's a lot of things we get into in the history lesson in God's master plan, which we don't have time to get into tonight. But that the spots represent that. Y'all with me? Okay? And in nature, they say the leopard is one of the few creatures not afraid to attack a lion or a bear. I do not know that personally, because if I see any of them 3, and if I see all of them 3, I run like a screaming schoolgirl seeing a spider. Okay? All right. Now, the 4th beast was completely different. It was a Raptor Rex here. You can see here. The saddle goes here, just so you know. I had a little fun with this, okay? We don't know if this is really what they look like. We don't really know even what dinosaurs look like.
Right.
Right? Because, I mean, you can't tell from bones what people look like.
Right.
Same thing with a dinosaur. They're just making it up, folks. Okay? But the 4th beast represents the great Roman Empire, okay? And we can get into a lot of history. We don't have time to go there, besides it's boring. But basically, I believe it was somebody help me out, was it Ptolemy? Or it was Ptolemy who got Egypt, and Seleucus who got Israel. Yep. Ptolemy wanted Israel, and so they began to fight. And so basically they fought for hundreds of years, their descendants, and finally I think it was the other way around. Seleucus had Egypt, Ptolemy had or one way. Anyway, it ended up Seleucians took over the rule, and it was this big bunch of fight, okay? And all of that fighting just paved the way for the Roman Empire to come in and take the fragmented Grecian Empire, and the Roman Empire comes on board. And that is why when the New Testament opens, you have Roman guards. You have Herod trying to kill the babies. When Jesus is crucified, he's crucified on a Roman cross with men in skirts, right? Okay? Yeah. That's because the Roman Empire had come in about 168 BC. It came in and took the fragmented land of Israel, made it a colony, and it's different. It was different, okay? The Romans fearlessly crushed all the opposition until the vast majority of the world was under their power. They conquered the Jewish people of Judea around 63 BC. Of course, Jesus Christ was born during that time. The 10 horns of the beast that Daniel saw represent that when the Roman Empire was established, it was initially had 10, initial divisions. And they're listed in your Bible study. The Roman Senate, the Greeks in Ravenna, the Lombards, the Huns, the Allemans, the Franks, the Burgundians, the Saracens, the Goths, those with dark makeup, the Saxons. Those were the 10 original provinces of Rome, okay? And so in the vision then, God was telling Daniel that the kingdoms, so these nations, it wasn't that there was going to be a literal bear, okay, come and grab you. It wasn't going to be a literal raptor rex come and haunt you in your dreams, okay? I'm trying to help you with some of your visions, okay? Some of you that lay awake at night and are scared of these. How many? I'm helping somebody, okay? God was using imagery or nation to represent nations that would come about, world powers that would have to be in place before, because all of these things ushered in Christ's first coming, okay? And when Christ came, he came, of course, and he came with judgment. Of course, we know he came the first time to put judgment on sin and set up a spiritual kingdom and sit down on the throne of people's hearts. How many of you believe that? And then, of course, the next time he's coming to literally set up reign, and we'll get to that, okay? But they didn't realize he had two comings, but all of these things happened. And so when you look at it, and this is just a quick little side note, then we're going to get to the fun stuff, okay? When you look at these 400 silent years, as I took over her Bible, sorry I didn't get it back, okay? You think, oh, it's boring, not a whole lot going on here. Actually, there was a whole lot going on here, okay? Because then when Babylon came along, well, why would God let the Persians take over? Well, there would eventually be Cyrus, and the Persian kings would eventually be friendly to letting the Jews go back to their homeland. The Babylonian kings would not let them go to their homeland, okay? The Babylonian, they would go into an area, take the people. Are y'all with me or are y'all bored? Yeah. Okay, the Babylonians would come into the area and they would take them out of their land, okay? Well, that served God's purpose because Israel had not been doing the Sabbath year. So they needed to get them out of their land, let the land rest, okay? Yeah. But now that he got them there, he needs to get them back. Well, Babylon would never let you go back home, but the Persians would let you go back home as long as you pledged loyalty to the king, okay? Right. So when you get down to Nehemiah's time, Nehemiah actually worked for the Persian king, and the Persian king actually financed his expedition to go back and rebuild the walls. Y'all with me here? Right. So God let the Persians take over because it was based on his will at that time, okay? Right. Somebody said, well, why the Greeks? Well, when the Greeks spread through the world, and why was Alexander the Great such a pro culture, and why was that? Well, what it did is it gave the world a common language. Yeah. Everybody in the world spoke, at least the commerce area and the leaders spoke Koine Greek, which was Alexander the Great. And Koine Greek was very nuanced. It was very detailed. It was very deep. It's the culture of all the Greek poets and all the Greek philosophers. It has terms for deep things. It's not just you know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, I mean, it'd be hard to write the Bible and talk about grace and sanctification in terms of Thor won't, I know, Thor won't. So it was a very detailed language, even much more detailed than modern Greek is today, and it caused the whole world to have one language. Well, why the Romans? Well, the deal with the Romans were swift. They were unlike anything else, and they built roads. In fact, in Europe, you can still see roads that the Romans built. Okay, still there. Okay, and they built roads because if you were a part of Rome, they had to be able to get an army and their chariots down to you and attack in a certain amount of hours or maybe a day or so. So they had roads going to everywhere, and they opened ship ports and trade deals, okay? And when you get to the New Testament, okay, when Jesus Christ founds his church, y'all with me here? Yeah. Okay, when Jesus Christ founds his church, all of a sudden the missionary journeys of Paul, he can go to a port and buy a ticket on a ship for Rome. He can buy a ticket on a ship for Corinth, okay? They can travel down to India, okay? When they get there, they can talk with the people because everybody speaks a little bit of Koine Greek. Are y'all with me here?
Yes.
Okay? Which Alexander had the Old Testament translated into. Yes. So you have, God was using these, and that's what God was telling Daniel, that I am behind human history. God was saying, I know what I'm doing, okay? Okay? You may seem a little crazy to you, but before Christ's first coming, I'm going to set it up by these nations that are represented by these animals or by these wild beasts. Y'all with me? Now, if that be true, okay, and if we know, now we get to the fun stuff. If we know that these beasts represented nations, now we kind of know what they are. They represented empires or nations or great bodies of governmental bodies of influence before Christ's first coming. Then if we are truly close to Christ's second coming, then there should be a double fulfillment. The distant fulfillment is these animals should also represent things that will be on earth before Christ's second coming. If we're really close to Christ coming again, which I believe he is, then we should be able to identify these things on earth today. Are y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay, I think I see a finger or a hand. Yes.
So going back to your Velociraptor guy, where
Okay.
it talked about the 10 horns being the initial divisions of the Roman Empire.
Yes.
When it said that the one came up and knocked the other
Yes.
out, do we know?
I think it refers to the infighting of some of the Roman rulers and the formation of the Catholic Church, and it's in your end notes.
I haven't gotten that
It's in your end notes under it's on number 3 on your end notes. I just skipped it for the sake of time because some people will find it boring. Yes. Yep. Go read that and then we'll talk. Good deal? Okay. Y'all ready? Y'all good? Y'all having fun?
Yeah.
Y'all want some chocolate?
Yeah.
M&M's?
I do.
Mom? Dad said no. Hubby didn't say no. Hubby, you want some chocolate? Chocolate? Weight Watchers? M&M's? Is Abby allowed to have some?
Yes.
All right.
One back down.
All right, back to the future. Y'all ready? Okay, so let's go back, and as dumb as it is, let's read, as I zoom in on Jesus and the Velociraptor there, let's go back to the dream, okay? And let's read it one more time. I have no idea where we are. Where are we? Okay, so read it one more time. Daniel 7:4. So now we're leaving the past behind, pressing forward to the mark of the high calling of Jesus Christ coming the second time. Y'all with me here? Yes. I just like jam like 4 scriptures together right here. Okay, go ahead.
And the first was like a lion and had the wings of an eagle. I kept looking until the wings were plucked, and it was lifted from the ground and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. A human mind was also given to it.
Okay, there is a nation today that uses the lion as its national symbol, and that nation is England. Or Great Britain. Everybody say yay?
Yeah.
And there is a nation today that uses the eagle as a symbol, and that is America, the United States of America. How many of you grasp that and you grow that, okay? And the distant fulfillment of this prophecy is found in these 2 nations because America, the eagle's wings, started a part of the lion, England, and then in 1776 during the Revolutionary War, we were plucked out, okay? And we were given a man's mind, or we became a democracy, where, at least in theory, your vote counts, okay? I'm just kidding. No, calm down, calm down. That was just a joke, okay? And so we can see modern, if we want to have a little bit of fun, it doesn't take a whole lot of the Scripture fits perfectly, and this is before Christ's second coming, okay? If we truly are in the last days, then we would expect to see some kind of nation and some kind of world power, as it was in Daniel's day, to be in existence, represented by these same symbols. And it's too close, it's too close to be a coincidence, okay? That the eagle's wings were plucked from the lion, okay, and then given a human mind to it, stand on his 2 feet like a man, okay? It's just a little bit too much of a coincidence. And the incredible thing is that God gave Daniel a scriptural portrait of the world independence thousands of years before George Washington ever curled his wig. So, I mean, God knows what he's doing, right? Okay? Men in wigs. That makes me nervous too. almost more nervous than men in skirts. All right, Daniel 7 and 5. This is not a politically correct Bible study. Where are we at? Go ahead.
And behold, another beast, a second one,
Still don't want to see your legs.
resembling a bear. And it was raised up on one side, and 3 ribs were in its mouth between its teeth. And thus they said to it, Arise, devour much meat.
Okay, there is a country in existence today which is represented by a bear and also great violence. And of course, that is what we call Russia. Okay, in terms of size, the bear is the largest of all the creatures in Daniel chapter 7. So it is with the antitype of Russia, right? Okay. As far as the 3 ribs, well, I know it can be several things, but there are 3 countries that historically Russia violently took from China through 19th century treaties. They're all on one side of Russia: Manchuria, Mongolia, and Xinjiang, how you say it? Xinjiang, thank you very much. And those 3 countries have become, there's still a source of dispute between Russia and China, and probably the fulfillment of the 3 ribs in the mouth of bears. Notice I said probably, possibly. Remember, I'm using those terms in this Bible study, okay? But it could also refer to, he said that they're on one side. It raised up on one side, so they're all on one side of it. It also could be what we call the Eastern Bloc in those countries as well, and we'll talk a bit more about that. Okay, that's another possibility. Okay, but it definitely, when you think about the cruel nature of the bear, you think about the communist history of the Russia being USSR and its communism and all of that, right? If you know your history, then it fits very well. Okay, Daniel 7 and 6. Who gets it? All right, bro, go take it away.
After this I kept looking, and behold, another one, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and a
Dominion
was given to it.
Okay. There is a modern nation that has repeatedly used the leopard for its symbol, and that country is Germany. Y'all with me here? The verse says dominion was given to it, and it's a historical fact. This is not a slam. This is not trying to be politically incorrect, even though I've never been politically correct. But I'm really not trying to be mean. This is just historical fact that Germany's thirst for power, hunger for power, has caused the last 3 world wars on earth. Okay, the Franco-German War of 1870, the Great War is what it's called at the time. We call it World War I, and World War II. Obviously, Germany and its thirst for power. Okay? The Germans even named their most famous tank the Leopard tank. Okay, and the verse says that the leopard had 4 heads, and Germany has risen and fallen 4 times. Okay, they called them Reichs, and the first Reich ended with the Franco-German War. It ended the first Reich. Then the second Reich came up, started World War I, and then World War I, when it ended with the fall of the second Reich. And then, of course, the third Reich is the most famous under Hitler, and in World War II and all of that aggression. And then when World War II ended, the third Reich fell. Okay. But since the 1980s, the Berlin Wall has been collapsed, and Germany is unified again, and they have become a major world power again. Okay, how many is that? Okay, it comes to 4. Okay, there's only going to be 4. Okay, so the wings before represented swiftness of attack and swiftness of action. Okay, so the chances are it won't be too long before Germany is involved in another world war. History tends to repeat itself, especially since the Bible says there's 4 heads on the side, and they have those wings. Y'all with me here? Okay. So we're in the 4th Reich. Now, I don't know if it will happen this year or 50 years from now or a couple hundred years from now, but I can guarantee you it's very probable and probably almost provable if we're accurate on our Daniel 7 as to the distant, that Germany's going to be involved in this thing as it goes down, and they have become very much an economic superpower again in Europe. Everybody say yay? Yay. Then Daniel 7 and 7, we get to the weirdo. Who gets the weirdo? All right, you got to think about this when you go to sleep tonight. Go ahead.
After this I kept looking in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrifying, extremely strong. And it had large iron teeth. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the remainder with its feet. And it was different from all the beasts that were before it. And it had 10 horns. While I was contemplating the horns, behold, another horn, a little one, came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were pulled out by the roots before it. And behold, this horn possessed eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth uttering great boasts.
Okay, now this is a 4th one that's going to rise, and at this point, we can only guess. I'm going to give you possibilities. Remember, I told you at the beginning how to use those terms very carefully. Provable, probable, some things are provable, some things are probable, some things are possible. I'm giving you possibilities. It may be in a way that's surprising, okay? But this is, it could already exist on earth or it could be yet be formed, but it appears to be a coalition. Those 10 horns represent a coalition between 10 kings or 10 world leaders or 10 nations. Y'all with me here? Okay? And that's why it's totally different from the other countries mentioned above. Now, a lot of people have given all kind of thoughts to them. Okay? My best guess is that question mark. But I'll dive into a few other things. Okay? These are stuff that people say. And again, I want to say these are possibilities. Okay? Maybe something else. Okay? But one possibility is the European Union. Okay? Many of the nations of Europe have now come together in economic union. You may have heard of this. When I was in high school, we actually saved up, and rather than going to Florida again for our senior trip, our Spanish and French club joined together, and about 20 of us went to Paris and Toledo, Spain, and Madrid. We went to Spain and France for, I don't remember, 10, 11 days. Okay, it was a nice senior trip. Can I get a witness? Worked our tail off to make it happen. Anyway, we went there. Okay, when I went to France, like one day we were sitting in Paris, and we also went with a teacher who was dumb enough. Our parents would never let us know if she would have known. They would have known that she would give us that much liberty, because we literally would just ride the metro all over Paris by ourselves. Anyway, we were sitting one day. We were sitting in Paris, and we found that all they drink is water. Okay, and they walk everywhere. That's why they're all skinny. Okay, those are probably non-politically correct statements, but that was just as a teenager. They all look very skinny. All the French people did, and they drink nothing but water, and they walk everywhere. So maybe we should do that. Anyway, especially in San Antonio, we'd all be skinny. Anyway, 110-degree weather walking to Austin. Anyway, we finally found a little cafe, okay, it had Coca-Cola. Okay, none of us had Coke for 5 days, and we were teenagers. We were like, yes, we all ordered it, paid with francs, not thinking about it. We're all sitting there joking, and while we're sitting there joking, I'm looking at it, and I was thinking, back then it was like 130 francs to $1 or something like that, or 1,300, I can't remember. It was 13 was involved in the number. And I was struggling still with my 13 timetables, because you went to 12, you know what I mean? Yeah. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. Don't make fun of me. Okay, I knew 12, but 13, I was sitting there, and I was carrying one, and I was figuring it up, and suddenly it hit me. I said, guys, and they said, what? We just paid $7.50 for this Coke. And everybody's like, trying to get the last little bit out of the thing, okay? Well, if you go to France today, you will never have to worry about all of that type of conversion in your head. Because then we got to Madrid and it was something else crazy. We had to do some conversion because they've all gone to the euro. Right. It's all a euro. And it's about About $1.65 or so. It goes up and down as far as America. So it's a little bit closer and a little bit easier to do. Y'all with me here? Yeah. Okay. So the European, they have a common currency. They have a common passport. Some interesting things, when they did the first euro, they did a 10 euro coin to celebrate, and they put Charlemagne, who was of the Roman Empire, as a leader of the Roman Empire, of the old Roman Empire, on their coin. They chose Charlemagne as the first person to depict on the very first euro. So that's kind of interesting, seeing how they correlate between the old and the new, and just a lot of little fun things. Somebody say yay? Yay. Now, if the European Union is going to be the 10-horned beast, somebody's going to have to drop out, because there is currently there were 28 founding members, and then this past year you may have remembered the Brexit, and that is Great Britain voted to become the first nation historically to vote to exit the European Union, and so now they're down to 27 members. Okay, but they were the first to exit it. Okay, and if they're going to be it, they're going to have 17 more exit. They're going to get down to 10, and then we got to see that some of the leaders got to take over. 3 leaders have got to come down, with one takes over, and I don't know how it's going to work. Okay, you follow what I'm saying here? These are possibilities, okay? Somebody's like, well, explain it to us. I don't know. I'm just guessing, okay? All right? Another possibility is another Soviet Union. Y'all with me? Yes. Okay? With the fall of the Soviet Union, Russia lost power over what we call Eastern Europe. And I know you're Americans and probably don't even know where Arkansas is, but the Americans mostly are horrible at geography. That was a slam, by the way. If you're offended, then you're offended. Somebody know where Dunley is. I know, right? If you look at Europe, the eastern side of Europe was called the Eastern Bloc. Okay, they used to be a part of USSR. Soviet had taken it over in their quest. Okay, and then now they're independent nations. Kazakhstan, all this kind of crazy stuff. But all of this kind of stuff, Lithuania, and all these little we call them Eastern blocs. Okay. Well, what is happening today is, very interesting, in today's news, okay, literally today's news, is Mr. Vladimir, okay, is building up his military, okay? And you need to understand that for the first time ever in the history of the world, the United States has an armored division, a full tank armored division in Poland, right here.
Yes.
Okay, that's the first time ever. And what that means is the reason they did that, the reason that Obama did that before, President Obama did that before he left office, and the reason Donald Trump has left it there is because Russia has been building up their military might for the last few years and training and doing exercises and military exercises and making pretty much everybody more nervous than you think, okay? And the reason we put a mechanized unit in Poland for the first time is because if they want to take over the Eastern Bloc, they got to go through Poland. And you need to understand something. If Russia does what they've always done in the past, they're going to be fighting U.S. troops for the first time. And so that's a big buffer. That would be a big step. That would be basically declaring war on the United States. And that's why that armored unit is there. Y'all with me here? So these are things that are happening today. These are not things that are happening whatever. Okay. So it seems very possible that Russia could come and try to take over some stuff, maybe form a 10-nation union. There'd be some upheaval and stuff. Possibly. It's very possible. Okay. Another possible is the Arab world. Okay. If you've been under a rock, Israel became a nation in 1948 when Great Britain pulled out their territorial rights and said, "You guys fight it out," basically. And Israel became a nation again, and immediately had to fight a war against some joined forces, Egypt and Jordan and Iraq and Syria and maybe Lebanon, and Iran. So they're all these joined together, these Arab countries, okay? There is definitely more than 10 Arab countries that would like to see Israel go down. And if they ever were to work out all of their Muslim differences and unite, there's nothing that makes friends of enemies like a common enemy.
Right. Yeah.
You're in 6th grade, and you and this person are fighting, and you're fighting with them too, but then there's one person y'all all like the worst, y'all all don't like that person, and so now you're friends, okay? And that's kind of the same, I'm not saying it should be that way, but come on, y'all go to 6th grade too? I went to 6th grade. So, the common thing here, okay, coming against Israel, absolutely, okay? It could be a conglomeration of those 3 possibilities, okay? We don't know yet, but we will see, and eventually an important world leader to end-time events will arise out of this 10-nation alliance. The little big horn who speaks blasphemies against God, okay, and I'm getting ahead of myself, or in this case, mouth uttering great boast, okay, let me give you a little hint, who goes into a rebuilt Jewish temple and proclaims that he's God or Messiah, okay, this world leader is going to come out of that 10-nation union or conglomeration or confederacy, and his rising is going to take down 3 leaders. I don't know how that's going to happen, but one day we'll be able to look back and say that was it. Okay? Yeah. These things are yet to happen, so we're given just possibilities, but these are things to look for.
Yes, sir.
Some of you are looking at me kind of strange. Daniel 7:19 through 20. Take it away. Let's see. This is one Israeli lady around a bunch of Arab people demonstrating here. Let's see. Actually, that was Arab and the Soviets. Let's see. Oh, we got to do that. Okay, so let's read Daniel 7:19. Where are we at? Okay, go ahead, Des. We got 31 minutes. Y'all doing all right?
Yes. Then I desired to know the exact meaning of the 4th beast, which had different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its claws of bronze, and which devoured the flesh and trampled down the remainder of its feet. And the meaning of the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, and before which 3 of them fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth uttering great boasts, and which was larger in appearance and deception.
So Daniel's describing it again because he wanted to know more about it, and there's extra information, okay? The beast has claws of bronze, or brass. Brass and bronze in Scripture is always a sign of sin. Right. You know with me? The brazen altar or the brass altar is where sin was taken care of. The brazen laver was where the sin was washed away. When you get inside the temple, everything was gold, which is pure. Everything on the external where sin was dealt with in the Old Testament, everything, even the fittings and the hooks on the wall and the curtains, outside was brass, inside was gold. Y'all with me? Okay? So this nation is characterized by sin, okay? And Roman Empire certainly fit that. They, in their togas, they would party and celebrate like it was 099 and rough crowd, and then vomit and loosen their togas and eat some more. Okay, they all died of lead poisoning because they didn't realize their cups of lead were killing them. And but obviously, whatever represents the 10-nation union, it's going to be one that's very sinful and very non-Christian. Everybody say yay. And Daniel wanted to know more about that little horn, that leader that came from it. So God showed him more of the vision. Daniel 7:21. Let's go to you, Hermano.
Okay. I kept looking, and that horn was waging war with the saints and overpowering them, until the Ancient of Days came and judgment was passed in favor of the saints of the highest one. And the time arrived when the saints took possession of the kingdom.
Okay, saints means called out one, or people who are called out from the world. So it's not obvious whether this is talking about the Jews. In the Old Testament, saints usually refers to Jewish, because the Jewish people were called out of the world to be a distinct unto God. Y'all with me? New Testament, it means the church. Here it's not obvious which way it is, but it's very clear that the little horn represents this world leader, the Antichrist, okay? And it coincides perfectly with what we learned last week in Revelation 12 with the woman clothed in the sun, that the Antichrist, the world leader of Satan, will make war with the nation of Israel and try to persecute her, right? Okay. Everything kind of lines up. Y'all with me here? Yeah. So what we have learned is that Revelation 12 was a vision, a view of end-time events through the perspective of the spiritual world, the things behind the scenes, the spiritual realm. The visions of the beast that Daniel and John saw, Revelation 13 and Daniel chapter 7, are end-time events from the perspective of dominion, or kingdoms and kings and nations and political rulers. Y'all with me here? Right. So God's using different avenues, but He's telling the same story. They keep ending up with this Antichrist boasting great things and persecuting Israel and this world. It all. What I'm trying to get you to see is not just Revelation, but Daniel and eventually Zechariah and Isaiah. They're telling all the same story, and they come from different perspectives, but they all end at this key time, this time of trouble of Israel, this prophesied last 70th week of Daniel. Y'all with me? Yes. I went back 2 weeks ago, so now we're kind of all put it together. Right. Your mind numb or you're grasping, okay? So we've got 28 minutes. Let's go to Revelation chapter 13. And now that we understand Daniel's vision of the beast, let's look at a similar vision that John saw. Let me make a point here, okay? These are the same visions, but remember John wrote in 110 AD. So this is not talking about Babylon. This is not talking about the immediate fulfillment of that prophecy. This is not talking about Persia, Medo-Persia, and Alexander and his generals, and Romans and the guys in skirts. It's not talking about them, okay? Because John is talking about things that are going to come before Christ's next coming, okay? So we're getting into end time events here. Revelation 13, 1 through 2. Take it away.
And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads
diadems, a big fancy word for crowns.
And on his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power, and his throne, and great authority.
Okay, so there's a lot of similarity, but there's some difference here. Okay, like Daniel, John saw this creature rise from the sea. It's the same beast as Daniel chapter 7, except now they're morphed into one. They're one animal with all these creatures. You grasp that? Yeah. They are Franken-monster. They are Franken-beast. Okay? And so the one beast has 7 heads and 10 horns. That comes from the fourth beast. That comes from the Tyrex raptor. Okay? All right? And then it looked like the leopard. Its body was of the leopard, had the feet of the bear and the mouth of the lion. And now we have some new information. The dragon, whom we know from Revelation chapter 12 is Satan, is what gives the beast its power. Okay? So this is some interesting stuff, because we know these animals in Daniel chapter. If we just started here, we'd be like, what in the world? Okay? But now that we've been through Daniel chapter 7, we've applied it to Christ's first coming and Christ's second coming. Okay, and again, I know not everybody's into this, but you realize how cool this is, right? Yeah. Basically now, these nations have joined together in some sort of confederacy, or some sort of what scholars will call one world government. How many of you ever heard that term before? Yes. You wonder where it came from. Well, it comes from grasping that Daniel 7, those animals are not literal beasts, but they represent kingdoms and powers that are going to be on the earth before Christ's second coming. And then in Revelation 13, John sees them morphed together. They're smashed up together. Okay, it's like when we were kids and we played Play-Doh, or my girls would play Play-Doh. They make this, they make this, they make this, make this. And my wife used to get so mad because at the end they would take it all and they would smash it, and then of course you just get gray. You know, all Play-Doh eventually ends up gray because we take all the colors and mesh. Some of y'all apparently not play Play-Doh with small kids. So anyway, and gray Play-Doh tastes the worst. So anyway, now it's one beast. Okay, so they come into one powerful creature. Yes, if you have enough Play-Doh, your carpet isn't great. So what this tells us, what this is depicting, has not yet happened. I want you to grasp that. This has not yet happened, okay? Because it is telling us that 10-nation union, whoever it is, whether it be the Arab world, European Union, Russia, or some conglomeration, whatever, okay, whatever that is, them, Russia, Germany, and England will come together in a one-world government that'll be orchestrated by the plan of the devil. Y'all with me?
Right.
Okay? And that's why the beast has 7 heads and 10 diadems or crowns, because last week the dragon had 7 heads and 10 diadems and crowns, Revelation 12:3. So while it looks on earth like a conglomeration of nations, really the devil is behind this. Y'all follow me here?
Yeah.
Can I make a point here just for fun, since I have the mic? Actually, I don't have a mic either, but can I make a point? Okay. Since I'm the one standing up and you're sitting down. Okay. The devil's a copycat.
Right. Yeah.
The devil's there. You don't find one person in the Old Testament ever possessed by a devil. There's not one person in the Old Testament ever possessed by the devil. But when Jesus Christ comes, God in flesh, God inhabits flesh and comes to earth. By the time He starts His ministry and Jesus starts His ministry, it's like everybody and their mama's devil possessed. Because the devil just copycats what God is doing. He's saying, okay, God's coming in flesh. I'm going to try to inhabit flesh.
Right.
Okay, y'all with me here?
Yeah.
Okay, except that, rather than heal them, He hurts them. Rather than... I ain't got time to get off there, okay? All right, what did God do the first time before Christ's first coming, okay? He used nations to orchestrate and bring about His power. So now Satan is copying, trying to do the same thing. He's going to take these nations and try to morph them and orchestrate his plan before Christ's coming to set him up and oppose Christ. You grasp what I'm saying here?
Yes.
You kind of clicking? The devil's a copycat. He tries to mimic God because he wants the glory.
Right.
Okay? It's kind of like that friend who they buy the clothes you wear and they like the music you like and the food you like because they have no identity and no life of their own. I mean, they have no personality of their own. Okay? If you've got to mimic somebody in order to be cool, then you're not cool. Okay? Right? Okay? And so the devil obviously is showing his inferiority because he has to try to copy the Most High. That's pretty good proof that he's not the Most High, right? Okay? I just felt like poking the devil a little bit. He pokes me sometimes, so I'm just giving him a bad day. All right. By the way, you're going to lose, devil. So anyway, so we come together. Now, the most important thing to us is there is an animal missing. Which animal's missing?
The eagle.
The eagle. The eagle is not there. Okay? For those of you who weren't raised in the deep south, eagle means eagle. The eagle wings are not there. Okay? So obviously, or apparently, very probably, I would almost say provably, America will not be a part of this government. It could be possible we were a part of them, then we withdraw. I don't know. But the only other reference in Revelation about the eagle we covered in our last lesson, Revelation 12 and 14. So let's go back to that and let's have a little fun. Okay? Let's have a little fun. Somebody read that. I don't know. I have no idea where we are. Okay.
But the 2 wings of the great eagle were given to the woman so that she could fly into the wilderness to her place, where she was nourished for a time and times and half a time from the presence of the serpent. Okay, this was the woman clothed with the sun that we talked about last week, which represented Israel. And we talked about that the Antichrist began to persecute Israel, right? Everybody with me? Yeah.
Okay, but she's saved by the wings of an eagle, and so she could fly into her wilson place, and she was nourished for a time, times, or half a time, which was 3.5 years. Y'all with me?
Yes.
Okay, so this cannot refer to Nebuchadnezzar and Babylon. It's written hundreds of years after that kingdom's fall. Can I get a witness? Okay. And so it's obvious that America has a role in end-time prophecy to protect Israel and deliver her from the hand of the Antichrist. Okay. So with these verses in mind, it's no wonder that God has blessed our nation. I want you to grasp something. Okay. That God's hand has been on our nation even recently to bless us. It is not because of our superiority.
That's right.
And it's certainly not because of our holiness as a nation.
Come on.
Okay? It's because, don't get too lifted up, okay, American pride. It's because at this point, Israel, I should say the United States has stuck with Israel and sided with Israel, okay? And it's because of us backing the nation and the people whom God foreknew that God has blessed us. Don't get so full of yourself that you think it's us. Okay? Eventually there's not going to be an America, okay? It's because if we ever stop backing Israel, we're going to lose God's favor. I want you to grasp that. Okay? This is not a political statement. I don't want you to read into what I'm saying, okay? I am proud to say that I did not vote for the last president and I did not vote for the current president. I'm very proud to say both of those. And if that offends you, it don't matter. This is not a political statement. I don't care who you voted for. I think that when politicians die, they lie still. Okay? And eventually they're all going to die and we're all going to have Jesus Christ, and the world's never going to be perfect till Jesus Christ. Okay? This is not a political arena. Take the political. You can write on your Facebook all you believe, okay? But if you're putting your trust in a man, whether he's Republican or Democrat, you're going to be lost, okay? Okay? But when president, so these are not political statements. These are just facts of the way my mind works in relation to Israel, knowing Bible, okay? Yes. President Obama, okay, whom I prayed for almost every day of his office, yet he took us historically away from what had been a traditional view of supporting Israel. Okay. In fact, in the last days of his office, we did something to Israel that we've never done before, right. And that is when the UN had a vote that was coming against Israel. We, for the first time ever in the history of the United States nations and Israel's existence, we did not use our veto vote to block off the sanctions against Israel. Are y'all with me here? Yes. That was a huge thing. Okay. Yes. And I want to tell you something. Okay. I think. This is my opinion, okay? And I can be totally wrong, okay? And if you get offended at this, you're missing the whole point, okay? I don't listen to Rush Limbaugh, could care less, okay? I really don't. I'm not really political, okay? But I want you to grasp something. I think that had more to do with who won the election than anything else. Right. Because God has prophesied that Israel and the United States are going to have some sort of alliance. Right. And God sets kings and pulls kings down. Yes. So I say, well, it was the Russians leak. But you need to understand, you got to have something to leak in order to do that. And isn't it interesting that it's the Russians? Yes. It's like you have all of these, and again, I'm not for or against anybody, okay? I'm not hammering anybody. I'm not hammering Trump. I'm not hammering Hillary. I'm not hammering Obama. I'm not hammering Bush, okay? I think they've all had their faults. But what I'm saying is that God He's moved by a little bit higher things sometimes than what we are looking at politically. Exactly. Okay? We're like, well, fix Obamacare. Well, I'm not sure God really gives a rip about Obamacare or even health insurance in general. I think that there's bigger things at stake on God's plate. You see what I'm saying? Yes. Okay. I like Jesus care a lot better when He just heals you, right? Okay. So I think that there is some things to this. Okay. I think we have an important end time role to play. And the first thing that Donald Trump did as far as Israel, I don't know if you noticed or not, but within his first 100 days, he had the leader of Israel, he met with him within the first 100 days. That was historic. And the second thing that he did, and I do not like Donald Trump at all, okay? That's another discussion for another time. But at the same time, one of the first things that he did was interesting. He declared that he wanted to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem straight up. Ever since the world has recognized Israel as a state, okay? I'm only interested in this as far as it applies to the Bible, okay? That the world leaders, Great Britain and all them, when they represented or recognized Israel as a state and ticked off the Arab world, when they put their embassies, they put it at Tel Aviv because they knew Jerusalem is a powder keg. They put it in Jerusalem. They're going to say, we believe Israel has a right to the land, okay? I don't know if Trump will ever actually be able to move the deal, the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, because it would probably start a world war, right, if he did it right now. In fact, the first thing that Israel came out saying was, let's take our time doing that. That's great, we're for it, but let's not do it immediately, okay? Because everybody's going to be attacking us again. It's like, back off, let us build up our missiles again before you do that, okay? But it was definitely showing that this current regime, at least in talk, right, is supporting Israel, okay? Y'all with me here? Yes. You're not mad at me because I made fun of whoever you voted for the last 12 years? Okay, so they're all liars, folks, all of them. They're all ungodly, and that's just part of it. I've had a problem with the last 6 presidents. That's the only ones I've ever had. I'm only 40 years old, okay? So politics is really, this is not the place for politics. I'm not trying to get off on politics. I'm trying to get you to see the world from the viewpoint that I believe America has a prophesied role. We've got to stay with Israel. If we don't stay with Israel, we're going to lose the favor of God. And I believe the end time events show that we are. Everybody say yay? Yay. So let's go back to Revelation 13:3 and finish up. We have 15 minutes because I've waxed eloquent about the political realm, and I need to get out of the political realm before I get hate mail from SoundCloud. Where are we at? Revelation 13:3. Take it away, sir.
I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed, and the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast.
Okay, so this is one of the heads of the Frankenmonster, the Frankenbeast, the conglomeration, okay? We don't know which head it was, okay? So any guess as to what this means is speculation, right? Some people have said, I've heard people say, the Antichrist is going to be killed and resurrected. I mean, it's possible, I guess. I really don't think that because only God can resurrect people from the dead. Okay? And the heads of the beast do not represent the Antichrist. The little horn that came out represented the Antichrist. Out from one of the heads. So I don't really think it's that. I think if it's a head, it represents a rise of a particular nation or a particular leadership. Okay? I think that there is a great possibility that Germany, the Third Reich, was one of the heads. And there's an end note on this if you want to get into that. Because after the World War II, people said Germany will never rise again. In fact, they put that ugly Berlin Wall right down through the middle of Berlin. One side was Democratic, the other side was Communist. And they did that so that Germany would not ever be together again. And when the Berlin Wall came down in the 80s, it was like this great rift and great wound had been healed, okay? Right. Y'all with me here? Right. So I think that fits it better than saying the Antichrist, whatever. But we don't know. I mean, but there are some possibilities there. And again, I'm using the word possibilities, okay? Now, let's move forward. We're at the top of page 6. You guys having fun? Yeah. We got 12 minutes. Revelation 13:4. Take it away, sir.
They worship the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast. And they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? And who is able to wage war with him?" Okay, so when this one world government or this conglomeration of nations come, people are going to give it. They're going to be on board. They're going to be like, "This is the way we got to do. We need to be a part of this. This is great. This is going to bring peace on the earth." Okay, but what they don't realize is that it is actually Satan that is orchestrating all of this behind. So that when the people pledge their allegiance to this government or to this governing body, they're actually pledging allegiance to the dragon itself, who is Satan. Y'all with me here? Yep. Okay, and so people are going to be fooled into thinking they're supporting something good. It's peace, man. It's about peace. When actually it's Satan in disguise, or it's a puppet of Satan. Okay? Revelation 13:5. Let's keep going. We'll get back to you, bro.
There was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, and to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. Okay, so there's some interesting stuff here, okay? If you go back to the original description, the mouth of this weird creature was the mouth of the lion, okay? And it's no coincidence that the international language of commerce and aviation is English, okay? And so if you want to be an international pilot, you've got to be able to speak English because it's the universal language of the world. Y'all with me here? Okay, the mouth of the lion, Britain. Now we speak a little bit different than they do, but it's the King's English, give or take a few accents. Okay, and so there was given him a mouth, began to speak arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act. Everybody say 42 months. 42 months. We talked about this. We keep seeing this time frame pop up. That's 3.5 years. The Jews had a lunar calendar. They had exactly 30 days in each month, 360 days a year. So if you do 42 months at 30 days, you're going to come up with exactly 3.5 years. So we see half of 7 years. We see times and half a time. We see 1,260 days. We see 42 months. They're all talking about the same thing. They're talking about that time period of 3.5 years. This is talking about the Antichrist. And obviously the Antichrist is going to spring from this one world government. It's going to be kind of his vehicle to when he goes into the abomination of desolation that causes that last 3.5 years. It's going to be his vehicle of which he's introduced to the world. He's going to be a man of peace.
He's going to have the answer to the Middle East. Poet didn't know it. Rhyme all the time. Okay? And he's going to seem like the greatest thing since sliced bread. But you better be careful, because to pledge allegiance to him or even vote for him is to vote for Satan and align yourself with Satan, because the dragon is really behind him. Okay? All right? Revelation 13:7 and 8. Let's finish.
It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authorities over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him. Everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. Okay, everybody's going to worship him except those, of course, who are written in the Lamb book of life, right? Okay. And notice he was given to make war with the saints and to overcome them. And authority over every tribe and people and tongue was given to him. And so it's a 42-month period that he makes war with them. Okay, so again, we can line it up. We don't have a time chart on this one. We'll put it all together next week. But when you put it on that time chart, it's the same last 3.5 year period. Okay, this is talking about the events after the abomination of desolation. And this basically tells us the same thing that the vision woman clothed with the sun. So in prophecy, you probably noticed something, and that is, it's like the first lesson was we got some basic principles out of the way so that you can understand they overlap each other. Right. And then the second lesson, we did this. Oh, that was cool. I understood that. And then the third lesson, we start over here, but we end up, and then we go just a hair further. Right? And then today, we started way over here, and Daniel went, okay? And we've ended up at the same spot, but we've actually gone just a little bit further. We've learned a little more about, do you understand what's happening? Yeah. Yep. Guess what's going to happen next week? We're going to start over in that corner over there, and we're going to end up here, but we'll go just a little bit further, okay? And that may be a little monotonous, but that's how prophecy is written. God's telling the same story from a zillion different viewpoints, and when you start lining them up together, things as I hurt my hand, begins to pray. Begin to come together, okay? Now, so what this tells us is the Antichrist is going to have his message of peace, but only those whose names are not written in the Lamb's book of life and those who are not saved or redeemed are going to be full. But those who know Jesus Christ are not going to be full. Well, why is that? Because they came to Prophecy Bible Study on Tuesday night. Or listen on SoundCloud. All right? And let's do one more little section, and then we'll pause for the week. Revelation 13 and 9.
If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with a sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. Okay, so here God gives some advice to the apostolic church, and it's basically kind of like the advice that God gave Peter after he chopped off Malchus's ear. He wasn't going for his ear, by the way. He was going for his head, and when he went like that, he come through and got the ear. Okay? And he says, hey, if you're going to live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword, Peter. Okay? And basically, he's telling the Christians, look, what he's basically saying is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. Here is the person. What he's basically saying is, look, just because you know this is coming, do not use violence to try to stop it. Right. It's not that we're not supposed to, and I know this goes against every red-blooded Mississippian that has 47,000 guns and all the deal, right? Hold on a second. I was checking what we're studying next week, so I can tell you at the end. There's a list on the front door of the fellowship hall. You're really starting to scare us. I've always wanted to, right in the middle of the sermon. I'm back. Okay. So, in other words, it's not the will of God for you to shoot the Antichrist. It's not the will of God for you to take matters in your own hands and try to murder the Antichrist or assassinate him, okay? That we've got to choose to live peacefully as Jesus Christ did and turn the other cheek. I know that goes against America's blood, okay? But your first calling is as a Christian, and your American second, a distant second, okay? But we can fight spiritually, okay? We get to Revelation chapter 19 when the church comes back with Jesus Christ to fight for Israel. We're compared to a great army, so we're going to fight eventually. But what I want you to grasp is in Revelation 19, we are fighting with him. That must be after the rapture of the church. But Revelation 13, we are commanded not to fight back. This must be before the rapture of the church. Right. Y'all with me here a little bit? It's a different time period, okay?
And so during grace, God has commanded us not to retaliate with violence, but to turn the other cheek and to do kind to those who do evil to you. Okay? You know, the end time is really going to show who here is really legit or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can fake it in a time of peace.
True.
But what about a great time of persecution? It's kind of hard to fake true faith, whether you believe it or not, okay? But we can fight spiritually. And so our last verse, Daniel 11:32. Take it away, sir.
By smooth words he will turn to godlessness those who act wickedly toward the covenant. But the people who know their God will display strength and take action.
Okay, so those who support the abomination of desolation and break the covenant with the Antichrist will be treated kindly. They will be treated kindly by the evil one. But if you go against him and say, I don't believe it, he's going to turn on you, right? Okay? But the people who know better, the people that know that Jesus is the one true living God, will display strength and take action, okay? We'll be able to literally quote, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. Right. Y'all with me? John was talking about that. The spirit of the Antichrist already does work. Okay, great, but greater is he that is in you that is in the world. Okay, well, guess what? We'll literally be able to claim that, okay? And what I want you to grasp is, in America, we pray for a great harvest and a great revival and great numbers of people to come repent. You need to understand that God's going to have to let the world get a little bit worse off before people will turn that way. Okay? When the World Trade Tower happened, and the World Trade Tower was a very horrible tragedy, an unprecedented tragedy on our soil. But you need to understand that in relation to the number of Christians killed a year, the World Trade Tower, and I'm not trying to minimize it at all, but the World Trade Tower was a small affair compared to the number of Christians that are persecuted and killed every year in certain countries in our world. Do you grasp that? It's kind of hard for us to understand. We were drawn to the World Trade Tower because it was on our soil and it was so prominent. But you need to understand that every year there's more Christians than that die in persecution. Christianity is the most persecuted religion on the face of the planet. Okay, and the Jews are the most. I saw a news report today that over 100-something Jewish centers received Jewish centers and synagogues in America received over like 120 bomb threats this past year. Right. And so the Jews are the most persecuted people in the world. This is where we're headed. Y'all with me here? Yeah. Okay? But at the same time, where it seems the darkest, the people who know their God will display strength and take action. You need to understand that God's going to let it get dark so that we who are the light and have the light can shine all the brighter. Right. It's going to be our finest hour. Right. It's not something to lay awake at night worried about the beast. It's something to be excited about because God is orchestrating nations, which means Christ's coming is right around the corner. Right. We can find all these nations except one, and it would just be a matter of them morphing together. Y'all with me here? Yep. When a world leader proclaims he has the answer to peace in the Middle East, and then goes in and stops the sacrifice in a rebuilt Jewish temple, don't you dare send him money. Don't you dare pledge allegiance. Don't you dare get on Facebook and talk good about him, because to do so is to support the dragon. Those who know their God are going to be mighty and do exploits. And God's going to be with us and back us up. We're going to see a great end time revival, but we got to be ready. Somebody say yay? Yay. To me, that's what prophecy is all about. Next week, we're going to finish Daniel 7, and we're going to finish Revelation chapter 13, and we'll talk about Nebuchadnezzar's dream. God bless you. You're dismissed.
In Jude, we find him writing in verse 3, I wanted to write of our common salvation. But he said, I realized it was necessary for me to write to you of the faith which was once delivered to the saints. It's very specific in Greek. It was delivered once for all. We do not have an evolving gospel that needs to be updated with the latest theories of psychology and sociology and legality. But we have the faith which once for all was delivered to the saints. It saved people in the first century. It saves people in the 21st century.